These games make you lie and suss out liars. But does social deduction have some inherent barriers? We're also going to be talking about this social deduction game that we've never talked about before on this channel yet. This one's crazy. We're back to our series of breaking down popular mechanics to show more to them that you maybe haven't seen. We're getting to the roots of why social deduction is fun and popular, bringing up tons of examples with variants, and of course, the problems of social deduct. This video is brought to you by Game Theory Tables, which, like us, want to bring the love of board gaming to as many people as possible. For the holidays, they're dropping limited quantity, huge discount door busters exclusively for people in their email list starting 11/13. There's also Black Friday drops for all visitors with some of the biggest discounts of the year. If you've been on the fence about upgrading your board gaming nights, this could be it. Remember to use the code SHELFSIDE for a free layout on a table. Now back to the video. For social deduction, we have a lot of games to reference, including this one, which I can't say the name of for obvious reasons. So we're going to be putting the name of games we talk about on the bottom left corner, somewhere there. Let's get into the definition. Okay, so this is where it gets kind of wonky with board games because social deduction isn't a mechanic on BGG. There's only the deduction genre and something about a traitor under mechanics. So traitor game is going to be used interchangeably with social deduction for this video because what are all these popular games known as? They're social deduction, not traitor game. Anyways, the precise definition for traitor game is a cooperative game with some type of betrayal mechanism. Traitors will begin the game with a different identity than the good team, and it's the traitor's job to trigger the lose condition for the good team. Could be blowing up the ship they're on, making resources run out, just be evil, okay? So these games are filled with lying and stretching the truth and the social deduction as the traitors try to sabotage the good guys. What you're truly doing is shrouded in mystery. Can be players closing their eyes while some others open theirs and point around, or by playing a certain card secretly to a pool, shuffling it, then revealing them one by one. There's a traitor among these three players. As for the good guys, they're trying to reach their primary objective and then maybe their secret objectives too, while trying to suss out who is actually bad. Luckily for them, sometimes the traitors don't even know who is their teammate if they have one, adding some deduction for the baddies to chew on. Also, traitors usually want to keep their identity a secret for most of the game, since that's where they can do the most damage, pretending to be a good guy and conveniently only having one of that resource where you actually had a ton. Or you can have different types of traitors that are trying to win in their own way. This blue renegade has to be the one to land the killing blow on the king to win. Why so good? The lying and deducing of social deduction is just an incredibly interactive mechanic. Like, look, who is lying a lot in real life? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you are probably not lying a lot, especially to your friends. So lying in game with stakes and teammates gives you all these tingly, fun feelings that you wouldn't get in real life. There's a capacity for huge reveals and betrayal. Like, remember that time when little Jimmy, we thought he was a good guy, but he was lying to us for 2 hours? Like, from my end, I still quite remember our Battlestar Galactica betrayals in high school, and that was what, like almost a decade ago. I trusted Daniel so much to escort the civilian ships and not destroy all of them. Yeah, it really did feel like we were in the TV show with a Cylon betrayal. All the lying and deducing makes social deduction a very engaging experience, where you're incentivized to look at other people's body language, explanations for their actions, and actual board states to see if what they're saying makes actual sense, less they're sus. Even if you are very behind in the game, like your characters are weak or out of position, you can still very actively participate by observing others, then feeding that info to your teammates. And then when it's not your turn, there's frequently mechanics for players to vote on things. Generally on exiling or killing another player, high stakes, right? Social deduct gameplay really gives you a lot back for being invested in the experience, and scales upward in enjoyment with how much your group is also invested. This all culminates in there being so many creative ways to lie and deduce how other people are lying for a huge skill ceiling. You can use a lot of logic and going back on other people's explanations and going like, okay, he said this last round, so what he's doing now doesn't actually make sense. But actually, it does make sense. You were just weaving a super fake narrative because you are the bad guy who's been lying the whole time to everyone. Specifically, in more complex social deduct, there's a rewarding payoff in understanding when to tank the game as a traitor, or finding good ways to sniff out the traitor as a good guy and convince others to exile him. Into the brig you go. And remember, you don't really want to freely talk about your intentions because everyone is watching each other. But you also have teammates that you need to find ways to work with. These more complex social deduct have roles or positions where it's quite fun to manipulate who gets them. This can get the game so hyped up as people trigger swingy abilities that they've planned so long for, like launching nukes as Admiral and then activating your Cylon reveal. Lastly, you can just keep replaying these social deduct games over and over again with their inherent replayability, and many of them run short. All you have to do for a completely new experience is re-deal the identity cards. What about different abilities for each good and bad team with this Resistance Avalon? Oh, this identity gets to see other identities. Look, since this is so social, just swapping out one member of your group is going to be such a different experience. And if you swap out a different friend group, well, you do the rest of the math. Yeah, you know how we said the social deduction really scales off of your group? Well, the thing is, it's extremely dependent on group dynamics, and with some groups, you're just not going to be able to play these games. Some people are just horrible liars, or refuse to lie, so then you just can't play with them. So as good as the game might be, you can't really blame people for not wanting to be put on the spot to lie. Like in this game, think of a word. Yeah, think of a word that describes what you think they're talking about in this grid here without looking too suspicious. But what you can do is play games with more in an alibi or an excuse on why you're being sketchy. Think of everyone getting dealt a secret location they're at, except for you. So then you're trying to figure out the location, and when it's your turn, you're supposed to ask a question. Okay, better not look too suspicious by asking a dumb question, right? But if you now have a hand of cards to ask a question from, you can just blame the card for saying a dumb thing. Also, you don't have to think as hard, much easier to choose from one of 5 questions instead of making up your own. Like, think about playing Mafia and only being able to talk by playing cards from your hand. This really changes the whole dynamic, huh? Back to the whole group dependency thing, some players are just so good at reading other people's body language or figuring out gaps in their logic. For these mega big brain players, they either need a group that is all on their level or to have a very complex game that we'll get into later in the video. Certain groups can also be very prone to quarterbacking, where it turns out that maybe just one player does most of the decision making. This is more common in simple social deduct, where there's only a good versus a bad team, with not many or none special hidden identity powers or agendas. If you get talked over, that can also feel really bad too, because even if you have the best logic and ideas, if you can't explain it to others, well, the group is just gonna vote otherwise. This can make social deduct at its worst fall victim to this mob mentality, where maybe people just listen to whatever their friends say or whoever spoke first. Arguably worse is having unengaged players who act sus just because they don't care about the game, or when at a crossroads for an important decision, like maybe they should pick person A or B to go on this mission, just don't really give it much thought and maybe do it randomly. Like you're throwing out the entire point of the game to try to suss out people. This isn't always entirely the player's fault too, where social deduct can boil down to a 50-50 pick sometimes. I've really thought through everything and it's still a 50-50 on whether each is a spy or not. I could just flip a coin. In general, the more complexity and length you have in a game though, the more you can accurately suss out people. After watching what someone's done around the ship in the last 3 hours of Unfathomable, you can start putting the pieces together. The other big issue that social deduct has is punishing player elimination. Now, I'm not talking about explicit player elimination necessarily, where when you die, you are literally removed from the game. I'm talking about situations where after traitors reveal themselves as a traitor, or it's pretty much proven without a doubt that they are the traitor. See, in the multi-hour Unfathomable, you get a huge benefit from revealing yourself as a baddie. So that's a fun high moment. But then after that, you're playing a super nerfed game. You can't contribute to any more crisis checks, which throws so much of your hand management ideas out the window. Then you can only take 1 action a turn. It's just not that engaging, much less for 1 to 2 more hours. See, once the traitor jig is up and you're in the open, you're no longer playing a traitor game. You're playing a team game that wasn't explicitly designed to be a team game. The chance for players to reveal themselves early and have these poop multi-hour experiences is so high with these games. The best thing to happen after reveals is for the game to end quickly, but seeing as we said how experiences scale off your group, you can't know when one team will win, especially if there's 2 traitors. Oh yeah, that brings us perfectly to issues with balance, and how do you really balance a game when it's so dependent on your player group? Some groups are just better at lying than others. Our group tends to be quite good at lying, haha, so it's hard for the good guys to pull wins. We very quickly realized that in Shadows over Camelot, it was basically impossible for the humans to win, and humans have never won Battlestar Galactica in our 8+ games. These bigger social deduct games are also Ameritrashy. Lots of abilities, card flips, and card draws, which all leads to very unique game states for fun ways to lie, but pretty much impossible to balance all these combinations, especially once expansions get involved. I guess we're just taking pills now to give us superpowers. This isn't even mentioning how weird some games Dead of Winter can be if there isn't actually a traitor and the players figure that out very quickly. Yeah, so it's also pretty common for there to be some weird player count balance issues here. Again, this totally scales off how good your group is at lying. And remember how we said social deduct scales really hard off of investment? Well, that means that people are taking a long time on their turns, talking a lot, or double or triple guessing themselves, even for simple actions. So playtimes sometimes balloon way past the printed value on the box. This isn't something that you can complain about too much though, since the goal is to talk a lot anyways, and you actually don't want social deduction to run short. It's like it has to be a well-timed, satisfying conclusion that is okay if it runs long, but hopefully doesn't drag. Can it be saved? I know, that's a lot of issues with social deduct, but we have human punishment, the beginning, that simultaneously fixes a lot of these issues while at a bit of a cost. Human punishment, the beginning, is social deduct on cyberpunk roids. It's a 3 to 4 hour asymmetric game where you can upgrade your characters with not 2 different traitors, but 3 different types of traitors. There's also a huge role change about 2/3 through the game, where the robot can convert others to become robots with him, and Legion can also do the same depending on how well he's doing. This fixes the traitor problem of getting revealed too early. But as you might have figured out by looking at this board, this game has complexity that demands respect. It's just hard to play this game well since all the roles intersect with each other in so many different ways. Like you'd actually want to play every single role once to understand how they work in the big picture to get a better idea on how to sabotage. So that's 4 different roles with the game taking at least 3 hours, so minimum 12 hours to play this game well. Look, it's not much longer than BSG, but it is just a lot heavier. It's a very eclectic game for those who want to get deep with social deduction and has the group that also shares that mindset. And that is not a common thing, based off of how I suspect most people are playing social deduct for an interactive party experience.
He has to switch to the general if he chooses you, because you can't be the general. Which means he has to switch it to either me or Ashton, and he trusts neither of us. Well, no, he has to switch it to Ashton if he chooses you.
I'm tempted to just drop security and look at Ashton's fucking things. We're at 4 security. Just me.
That's fine.
Today's fail. You didn't put any in today's fail.
No, I was trying to load you up. I knew you were a machine from like turn 3.
Final thoughts. Long social deduct is really a conundrum to me, because them being long gives you all the information and abilities to make the deducing more informed and epic, thus you have the cool creative plays. But taking the very simple core of someone lying, then being found out about it, doesn't necessarily scale so well over many hours. Then human punishment gets around us by inserting more of everything, which is very inaccessible. There's video games that can offer a lot more depth and ways to hide inputs that board games have not done yet, so that could be the inspiration for social deduction designers out there. I kid you not, board game social deduct definitely feels like it's ripe for disruption. And obviously I don't have the answers because then I would have designed it by now and become rich. I used to play so much social deduct, but I've been slowly gravitating away from it ever since Unfathomable's release 2 years ago. If I were to play a more serious social deduct, I would play Blood on the Clock Tower, and that is literally just Werewolf with extra roles and more game master responsibility. So as good as this is, I can't really call it too much of a derivative from Werewolf. Also requires a very dedicated group to fully enjoy all the crazy abilities when you get deep in the game, and we are not there yet at all. Review possibly coming one day. I also still need to try all these other social deduction games here. Yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna hear it from you guys in the comments below. Excited to read those. But to wrap this up, social deduction / traitor game is a feast or famine mechanic that is gonna be fabulous for the right group, especially with the shorter and lighter games. In case you didn't catch them, I've written all the games that we mentioned in the description below, and we'll also have a link if you want to buy them for yourself. Anyways, see ya guys. Thank you to our patrons for making videos like this possible. We got all you guys right here. All you guys right here. Oh my goodness, yeah. There's a lot of social deduction games out there that we still haven't tried, including Nemesis. So I'm sure we'll have more thoughts about this topic in the future. Also, thank you to our Mad Lads of Cardboard right here. And remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'll see the comments below. I know there's going to be a lot of those. Anyways, bye-bye.